I'm Farrell Fleming. I'm the Executive Director of the Senior Center. This is the function the Center's had for many years. We've functioned with these candidates forum, often with ACE. John Reed is here tonight, and I'll be giving over the mic shortly to him. Our membership chair, so this is going to be, you're going to get a 30-second commercial from the Senior Center. And Dave Page has promised me, Mim, you'll give him the 30-second sign? Okay.
Are you ready to go? Okay, how many of you are members of the Senior Center? Oh, half. Okay, let me give you 2 good reasons why everybody should be a member of the Senior Center. Number one, we're responsible for over 70% of our own financing. We're the only senior center in Snohomish County that provides 70% of our own financing. And if you're not a member, you can help out seniors. We feed over like 3,000 people a month, $3 lunch. If they don't have the money, we provide the lunch. If you are a senior, there's more things happening here, right here, every single day than anywhere else in town. Over 100 things happening every month. $25 a year. And, oh, she put it up, okay. $25 a year, and you get a free lunch and a free breakfast that goes with it. So I've got membership forms right on the back table. Pick one up on your way out.
Thank you, David. That was that for 45 seconds, but John, that was impressive, wasn't it? Yes, indeed. Well, he's learned some discipline here, so we've been good with Dave. Thank you, David. Again, the Senior Center, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We live on this premises, have lived on these premises since 1967, so we've been here a long time. At the moment, and as part of when the owner wanted to sell it in 1972, the way the deal worked out, the Senior Center got a big HUD grant. The city did a 25% local match, and as a result, the city came to own the building and the land, and we have been here as a senior center, managing a senior center ever since. A lot of innovative steps along the way, but we've been very happy to be here. Some of you have probably heard that we're contemplating building a new center, and the goal for that is it will be a senior and community center, and we're just struggling with a new name that will somehow encapsulate all of the wonderful things we have in mind, serving really people of all ages. But at the point that we can actually be successful with that, the Senior Center, the nonprofit, will raise the money, build the building, own the building, and actually maintain the building. And 55 years later, given the lease we have agreed to with the city, the long-term lease, the land actually goes, and the building actually goes back to the city. The land will remain owned by the city and will be a city park the way it is. And we have some extraordinary plans to do something quite wonderful with the waterfront and restoring some of the beach. So with all of that, it's our pleasure to have this event here, and I will introduce our co-sponsor, but really the ones who did almost all the work and whose motive force has made this evening happen, and that's ACE and John Reed of ACE. So take it away, John.
Thank you, Phil. My name is John Reed, and on behalf of the Alliance of Citizens for Edmonds, known as ACE, I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's Council Mayor Candidate Forum.
Louder, John.
Closer to the microphone.
Back row can't hear you.
This is at least the 4th and possibly the 5th candidate forum that we have jointly sponsored with the Edmonds Senior Center. ACE is a 501c4 organization, nonprofit, founded in 2004. We support responsible development that respects and complements the character of Edmonds. You can visit our website, aceedmonds.org, if you want to learn more about us. There are also some brochures on the back table if you are interested. As a reminder, if your cell phone is on, please make sure the ring is silenced. It is my pleasure to introduce tonight's moderator, Susan Payne. Susan is originally from Seattle and has lived in Edmonds for the last 13 years. She has served on a number of nonprofit boards and was elected in 2006 to the Edmonds School District Board of Directors, serving for 6 years. She has also served on the Edmonds Tree Board. Susan has worked in the local court systems as a manager and administrator. For the past 10 years, she has been an analyst for the City of Seattle, working on policy development, regulations, and resource development. For fun, Susan likes to hike and to spend time with her friends and family. Susan, the floor is yours.
Well, hello everybody. This is the right distance. Okay, well, hey, welcome to the Senior Center and the Candidate Forum sponsored by ACE. I'd like to do a couple of things. First, we are going to have, let me see, where am I? I will go ahead and give you the rules for the Candidates Forum. If you've been here before, you know the drill fairly well. Each candidate will be asked 3 questions and will have 1.5 minutes to respond. Then each of the candidates will then each candidate in each of the first 3 groups will have a chance to ask their opponent a question with no more than 30 seconds. The opponent will have 90 seconds to respond, and the asking candidate will have up to 30 seconds to rebut the response if they choose. Finally, each candidate will be allowed a 1-minute closing remark. This evening, we have a timekeeper, and her name is Mim, and she's in the purple. And when you have 15 seconds left, you will go ahead and get the yellow card, and the red card comes when you're out of time. So with that, I'd like to invite Mike Nelson and Alvin Rutledge to come up to the front here.
Really need to think like a rock star, like have it right up here.
All right, this evening, we will start with asking Mike Nelson and then Alvin Rutledge the first set of questions. So, Mr. Nelson, what are your visions for the future redevelopment of Five Corners?
That's a good question. I was prepared for so many other questions. Five Corners, I used to go to the gym there. I'm sad that gym is closed. I am very happy with the roundabout. It seems to be working quite well. And I'm interested in having more businesses there, more restaurants there, and whatever we can do to encourage, even a grocery store there.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Rutledge, same question. What are your visions for the future redevelopment at Five Corners?
The development has been moving along quite well here in the past. A lot of studies has been done years ago, and you're getting to that point today. As far as development goes, as you know, we got Growth Management Act. You're going to have so much growth in your East City, and so the future of Edmonds and the vision would be is continue to bring in more downtown drawings. You've kept the height limit down. You've got these new units being built over here. So this is what you have to do is continue developing this area. That's a long-term vision.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Rutledge, you again. We're going to start with you with this question. So, what steps should the city take to address the numerous impacts of climate change?
The climate change is something that you've got to watch very closely. We're right in the point of view in this city right now where the climate is going to be coming. And so I would be very watchful of what's going to go on in the future.
So, may I offer you a couple of suggestions for some sample issues, maybe water quality, water shortage, sea level rise, or increased energy consumption? You have a little bit more time.
Like I just mentioned, all those issues have been studied out before. And so what's happening here is you have everything coming back in again. We're building, you got more water coming in, more quality. You got continuing, it keeps moving here. So we're all getting up in age. We all been around here. And you look around in here, we're not going to be here in 20 years from now.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm here in 20 years. Mr. Nelson. What steps should the city take to address the numerous impacts of climate change? And some examples could possibly be water quality, water shortage, rising sea levels, increased energy consumption.
Thank you. Well, I believe I'm well poised to answer this question. As somebody who's on the Mayor's Climate Protection Committee and was on prior to being on City Council, it's something that I feel very strongly about, I believe, ever since I was in law school. And there are several things we're trying to do. Number one, in our comprehensive plan, which we just updated, it now is in the solid waste part of that plan, is a goal for zero waste in our city, and that's something we're going to be working on developing a plan. So right now, on our Climate Protection Committee with our city staff and residents, we're looking at ways to do that plan. And how does that mean? That's not something we're going to be able to do overnight. That's something it might take 10 years, but what kind of measurable steps we can do is what we find is that waste is something that every city can manage. It's something that, for example, in King County, 75%, they looked at their landfill, and 75% of their landfill was something you could either recycle or reuse. So we can all do a much better job, and it actually has a measurable impact and something that every city can participate in to have a positive impact on the climate. Additionally, using more renewable energy. The City of Edmonds was one of 5 cities last year that got an award for increasing the amount of residential solar usage by residents by 200%. So it's something that was partly because of incentives and grants and discounts that folks got to do that in their homes. We need to do more of that. We only have one city building that uses solar right now. I think we can do more of that. The expected sea level rise in our coast right now is going to be 2 feet. So that's something we have to also plan for.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Do appreciate that. All right, Mr. Nelson. Considering the incentive zoning options that are now available at Westgate, would you vote for height limits to exceed the current 25/30 feet in the downtown Edmonds core in the surrounding bowl? If you would, what incentives would you propose that the city receive in return for the added height?
I think Westgate and downtown are 2 completely different places. And I think that the citizens of Edmonds have been very clear and very vocal about their concerns about height limits. So I do not, although I deliberate quite long on Westgate, I would have to deliberate a lot longer when it comes to our downtown. That is not something I think we have to be very careful about. It's something that I know draws thousands of residents and visitors from all over, even from Canada, who come here because of that small downtown we have, that quaint downtown. So I'm reluctant to. I don't know if there's any incentive that would make me want to just raise a height.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Rutledge, same question. Considering the incentive zoning options now available at Westgate, would you vote for height limits that exceed the current 25-30 foot limits in downtown Edmonds in the surrounding bowl? Or if you would, what incentives would you propose that the city receive in return for that added height?
The Westgate area, this has been going on for about 8 or 10 years. This isn't brand new. You got KFC there. You have new people that have moved in the area around that area down there. And I've been out in the community. You have to talk to those people. And the consensus is, you're asking me, I've always been against building heights. You're talking about the bowl down here. I have been out here in the community here, and I'm telling people, you want to leave it like it is today, this is 215. Now you're talking 225, you're talking 230. The city might be all big buildings down here. Let's face it, it's coming. Right now, it's not. But the residents down there in those areas is the ones you have to talk to. One more time, I've always been against raising building heights in this town, and I'll continue on that level. You got Ferndale Village you left out here. Ferndale Village is not too far away. They want to wipe that out and want to go 60, 65 feet here. So building heights is absolutely no for me, to increase the heights.
Thank you very much. Mr. Rutledge, you may now ask your question, a question of your opponent. You have 30 seconds to ask the question, and Mr. Nelson, you'll have a 90-second response, And Mr. Rutledge, if you'd like, you can have a 30-second rebuttal.
You were appointed to the city council in March of this year. Did you tell the select committee that you were the executive director of SEIU, a union represents many employees of this city, which made you ineligible to apply for this position?
During the candidate interviews, I told the entire city council and all who were in attendance and all who were watching on television of my day job, which is, yes, I am executive director of the Service Employees International Union. But, you know, I don't think that the issue is not whether or not I have a conflict. The issue is that I work for a union, apparently, and it doesn't matter. It's not the particular local union question that works for our city. It seems to be that, again, I just work for a union, and if you work for one, you must work for all. So if that's the case, I'm honored to work for those who clean your restrooms and offices, who drive your kids to school, who bring up groceries at your supermarket, who take care of your disabled family members at home, who ensure that your streets are driving on are safe, aren't flooding, who answer the call when you dial 911, who keep the criminals at bay, who provide emergency life-saving medical care both for you at home and at the hospital. And most importantly, I'm honored to work for all the citizens in the city of Edmonds.
Thank you. Any response, Mr. Rutledge?
The only thing I can say is that Mr. Nelson, on his application, would like to leave that city hall and leave that open for anybody in the public. Myself, I would not look at that copy, but I think he is entitled to leave his application that he put into the city council at the city hall, city clerk desk.
Thank you very much. Mr. Nelson, you may now ask your opponent a question. 30 seconds for the question, 90 seconds for the response, 30-second rebuttal if you need.
Mr. Rogers, you previously mentioned that public safety will be one of your top priorities. Can you share which public safety issues you would like to address if elected?
The public safety issues had been a big issue for me for several years. I've been on the levies in the past to support public safety. This is something that we have to have, and I am for on the levy for the police department here. That would increase the public safety. At the present time, the city finances are doing very well here in the city, so we are going to be adding the 4 policemen and so forth. But it does not say we're going to be at 4 or 5 years from now. So I am completely 100% for public safety in this city, parks, departments. We got to improve all that. We're in the process of purchasing Civic Field up here. That's a public safety issue through the Parks Department.
Any rebuttal? No, thank you very much. Mr. Nelson, it's time for our closing statements. So you have 60 seconds apiece. Mr. Nelson will go first, and then Mr. Rutledge will come second.
60 seconds, okay. 60 full seconds, here we go. Thank you so much, ACE and the Senior Center, and for all of you here, and for those who are watching, for hosting this tonight and for these questions. You know, when I talk to residents, they tell me 3 things. They love it here, they lived here most of their life, and they like it the way it is. And I too believe Edmonds is a special place, and I want to keep it that way, and that's why I'm focusing on a strong economy, a safe community, and a healthy environment. And you know, when I talk about the economy, I'm talking about revitalizing Highway 99. I think that's an area that's really unique opportunities, as well as promoting our city as a tourism destination with a long-term focus on financial sustainability. And when I talk about safe community, I'm talking about supporting our firefighters and police officers, you know, bringing back 2 officers we lost during the recession. And also, you know, there's some things our fire department is working on. For example, falls is the #1 injury in our town, and that's something that they're working really hard on. We have 1,000 falls a year, and it's more than any other kind of injury, and so we're going to be bringing on some folks to work on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Rutledge.
I'd like to thank ACE for putting on this event this year. We got a bunch of people out here. I'm running for this position, which is a 2-year term. My opponent's been in here for 6 I'm for quality of life. I'm for moving the city in the right directions in the next 2 years. And I think it's very important in the next 2 years how this city moves. Like I mentioned before, we're looking at down the road in 4 to 6 years from now. And so we got to have leadership, we got to have change, different things coming into the city. So this is why I need your support. I'm running for this position. It's a 2-year term, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Next, I'd like to invite up David Tietzel and Alicia Crank, who are running for position number 5. Well, good evening, you two.
Good evening.
I will begin the questions with Mr. Tietzel and then become Ms. Crank. First question. A task force has been formed to consider various long-term options to address the ferry train emergency access dilemma, including the reactivating the Edmonds crossing to the south, a bridge over the tracks, a tunnel under the tracks, or a train trench. Which option would you support given the opportunity, and why?
Well, the task force is right now working on a contract with a consultant, an engineering firm, to assess the various options. So I know they'll be fleshed out. We'll have a good sense of what they're going to cost, how long it's going to take. And I believe the 3 major options are a trench, a tunnel, or an overpass. We'll have to wait and see what the consultant says, and we'll have to assess what the data tells us. I will say that it's going to take some time. The study will take a year to complete. After that, the council is going to have to consider the data and determine which way they want to go, where the funding will come from. Each option will be very expensive. My primary concern is emergency access right now. And we need to get some way to get emergency first responders to the waterfront if there's a heart attack or an accident at the dive park, something at the senior center. And right now that doesn't exist. So I think we should look at an option like a small 1-lane overpass of some sort to get aid cars over to the waterfront in the event of an emergency. So I think that can be done much more quickly and much more cheaply than the long-term option. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Crank, same question. A task force has been formed to consider various long-term options to address the ferry train emergency access dilemma, including reactivating Edmonds Crossing to the south, a bridge over the tracks, a tunnel under the tracks, or a train trench. Which option would you support given the opportunity, and why?
Sure. I think it's a little premature at this point to make a definite answer one way or the other. As my opponent said, that the task force has just hired a consultant, and it will take some time to do the necessary research and input and figure out, what's the most cost-effective and safe way to do this. I also think there's a short-term and long-term answer to that. I think for both. Having a bridge that goes over the tracks is the best option, especially in the short term, especially with the concept of the senior center becoming and being built to be a community and senior center. There's going to be more people that would be impacted. So the short-term answer would be the bridge. I think long-term, what I do know about construction, and anytime you want to dig anything around water, you really need to really count your costs there and be careful. So I think anything that doesn't involve having to disrupt Mother Nature in that way is beneficial to all of us.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Crank, what ideas do you have to address the increasing homelessness issue in Edmonds and the creation of more low-income housing?
I think people are always caught off guard, think that there's a homelessness problem in a city like Edmonds. I think people think it's large cities that are underserved or maybe run not so economically well like Edmonds is, but homelessness is everywhere. I think there are several different options that could come into play. I've seen other cities where some of the churches have gotten together and done a rotation of being able to house the homeless on a weekly basis, so that that responsibility is shared not only by the churches but by the community. Also, if there's buildings that could be used as a cold winter shelter, especially then where it can be more long-term over the winter months, that's an option. Some cities use their armory if they have one there. So if there was a similar situation where we had a building that could accommodate such a program, I think that's the way to do it. As far as low-income housing, unfortunately, I don't like that term because low income can be interpreted in a few different ways. I really just try to look at it as housing affordability. Some folks that are middle income like me, in some cases can be considered low income because I'm below the median of what that city represents. So I think getting rid of that stigma of low income housing needs to go away, but also to look at, what are some areas of housing affordability that we can do in Edmonds, whether it's doing mixed development, ownership and rental housing, in different areas of the city, or be able to create standalone townhomes to do that as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tietzel, same question.
Well, I will say I've been doorbelling very actively for the past number of months. I've been to almost 5,500 doors personally in that time, and I will tell you that I've seen homeless issues here in Edmonds, and as Alicia says, it's surprising that we have that issue here. You think of Edmonds as being our beautiful downtown and flower baskets, but we do have that issue. I can tell you there's one homeless camp behind the Burlington Coat Factory up near Highway 99. So it's here, and I think we need to work as a region. It's not necessarily an Edmonds problem. It's an Edmonds, Linwood, Mount Lake Terrace shoreline problem. So I think we should be working with our neighboring communities to figure out what we can do to help the homeless. There's a mental illness component. There's a drug use component. We need to be focusing on all those things and working as a region to help bring some services to the folks and help them get beyond that. I think we could work on some public-private partnerships. I think the faith community could be involved in helping in that regard. But we certainly need to get after it because, it's difficult with the people that are living that way. They're living under tarps, out of cardboard boxes and that sort of thing. It's just not the right way to live. It also creates a crime issue. I can tell you on the east side of Highway 99, I've had residents tell me they're getting a lot of mail theft, a lot of car prowls, issues like that could be attributed to the homeless population. So it'll behoove all of us to work on the issue as a region and get it resolved.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tietzel, considering the incentive zoning options now available at Westgate, would you vote for height limits that exceed the current 25, 30-foot limits in downtown Edmonds or the surrounding bowl? If you would, what incentives would you propose that the city receive in return for that added height?
Thank you. Well, let me first say we moved here in 1987 because we loved the low building heights, the nice light we have in Edmonds, and I want to protect that if I'm elected, so I definitely intend to do that. There are certain areas of town, such as Westgate, maybe Five Corners, maybe Perrinville, Highway 99 certainly, where we can go higher, I believe. 3-4 stories might be appropriate, as long as we're not blocking views, as long as it's in character with Edmonds, as long as it's not intimidating and the buildings are right up against the streets, so they create a canyon effect. So I think we can accommodate higher heights in certain parts of town where we're not impacting views and where it is attractive. We need to make sure we protect our Edmonds Bowl area and the waterfront because we've got great views down here. Again, we've got great light. I don't want to see our streets shaded and look less friendly than they do currently. So I would certainly support the low building heights in the downtown core area and consider slightly higher heights as long as we're not talking about skyscrapers in the fringe areas of town where views aren't effective.
Any incentive considerations?
Well, again, I think if we're talking incentives, if we're thinking about Westgate as an example, I think we could maybe offer an additional story in addition to additional public space that the developer may provide, some things like that. So I think, again, it's a case-by-case basis, but we need to be careful about not making our city less friendly, make it look like Ballard. And certainly, all of you that have been on Ballard lately, you'll know that what I'm talking about. It is not attractive there any longer. We can't have that here.
Thank you very much. Ms. Crank, same question. Considering the incentive zoning options now available at Westgate, would you vote for height limits that exceed the current 25, 30-foot limits in downtown Edmonds and the surrounding bowl? If you would, What incentives would you propose that the city receive in return for that additional height?
Sure, I'm often asked the question, what is it that you really know about Edmonds? And one of my answers is that I know that downtown residents and those who have been here for a while don't want additional heights in the bowl. So the people have spoken. I don't feel a need to say anything beyond that or to say that I know better than they do. So with that, there would be no incentive to that. But I would also say that, people come to this area for a reason. And I would also think for those who are homeowners, you purchase where you purchased your home because of what was around it, including those views. So I think it would be a travesty to come in and decide that for economic reasons, let's take that away or to compromise that in some way. But in short, the people have already spoken about what they want down there, and heights is not one of them.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Crank, you may now ask your opponent a question, a 30-second question. 90-second response and a 30-second rebuttal is available. So please, go ahead.
Ready? I know one of the key issues that you've ran on as part of your campaign is be included, and I'm sure that means diversity as a whole. Should you be elected, as a gatekeeper to the community, what efforts would you make on council to ensure that various areas of diversity are included on commissions, on boards, and in the community as a whole?
Thank you. Well, let me just say, as a candidate, I've been reaching out for a number of months to members of our community that come from ethnic diverse backgrounds. Our Asian community, which is one of our largest segments here in Edmonds, our Hispanic Latino community, which is also a large segment, and also we have a growing African community where we have people living here from Gambia, Eritrea, places like that, Ethiopia. I've talked to these people. I've doorbelled and met them in person. So I've been reaching out to those folks, trying to get their feedback, get their input about what is important to them about Edmonds. I can tell you I've been attending council meetings for the past year, almost every one, and almost never do we have people of ethnic, diverse backgrounds come and speak to council. It's intimidating, it's not comfortable to stand at the podium and speak to 7 council members sitting behind the dais. So we need to reach out to those folks and meet them where they are, how they want to be met, and get their input, because I don't think we can govern properly unless we're hearing from everyone, and right now we're not. I should say my Be Included theme doesn't just mean diversity, it means a geographic component as well, from the perspective that we need to get out to the edges of our community, up to the Perrinville area, east side of Highway 99, Furdale Village, get those folks input also into our city governance process, because frankly, we're kind of a bull-focused government at this point. We need to expand beyond that and hear from everyone so we can manage the city better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tietzel, your turn.
Wait, I thought I'd get a rebuttal.
Oh, rebuttal. Sorry. My bad. Forgive me.
I guess my rebuttal would just be that I think that is a great answer, but I would really have liked to hear some specifics as to how you would make that happen. For example, I think that one of the things that would be great is really pushing forth what the new diversity commission is and really expanding beyond what that means. So it's not just racial or ethnic, but including members of the disability community so that they would be able to weigh in on things that the city council will have before them and to make those decisions going forward.
Thank you. My apologies again. Mr. Tietzel, your turn. Now you may ask your opponent a question, and I
Thank
won't
you.
step all over your stuff.
Are you ready? Well, Alicia, I've seen your campaign signs around town. I'm sure the audience has as well. And right on top of your campaign signs, your campaign theme is listed as a new vision for Edmonds. So with that in mind, could you articulate and be specific, please, what you believe the old vision of Edmonds is and why you believe your vision is superior to that?
Well, I guess my answer to that would be, is this on? Oh, I didn't. Oh, you're such a gentleman. I would say that I wouldn't say that my fresh vision is something that's superior to the current vision. I think it's more about being able to take a fresher perspective to things that are happening now and seeing from a different view what things can we additionally be able to add to current council and how things are run in the city. For example, I've come from communities where during a city council meeting where members of the public are allowed to pull consent calendar items to be able to question or discuss before council votes on it. And the same thing with items that are being voted on that night, there is that opportunity to do that. So what I'm saying with my fresh vision in that example would be to say, let's see if there's other opportunities for members of the public to be able to chime in and contribute to something that's being brought before council instead of coming to a meeting where they can't say anything at all because it's too late.
Rebuttal.
Thank you for those comments. Well, let me first say, I've been to, again, nearly every council meeting for the past year. It's important to do that to become current and familiar with the issues we're dealing with. And I will tell you that there's always a public comment segment at the near the beginning of the council meetings where the public's invited to talk on any issue except for issues that are currently on the agenda for public hearing that night. Now, if the agenda item is on public hearing, the public's invited to comment at that part of the meeting. So in very rare exceptions have I seen the public being denied the ability to speak. It has happened,
Thank
but
you
it's
very much.
very rare. Thank you.
Sorry. All right. Thank you very much for coming. And so, what we have coming up right now is your closing statements. Mr. Tietzel first, and then Ms. Crank.
Did you say Mr. Teitzel first?
Teitzel.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yes, Teitzel.
Thank you very much. Again, we moved here in 1987, my wife and I, and our kids were born here. We raised them here. We've lived in this area for that period of time until the current time. So we love Edmonds. It's home to us. It will be home to us on into the future. I've got a strong business background. I can bring business expertise to council, which I think is needed. I've got a strong base of support, both liberal and conservative, Republican and Democrat. You may be aware of the Mayor Erling supporting me, as well as former mayors Fahey, Hall, and Hawkinson. Also, Ruth Kagi supporting me, Cindy Ryu supporting me, the Democratic Party, as is Strom Peterson. So, as you can tell, I've got both Republican and Democrat support, which is important to me. I consider myself a nonpartisan. I'm not wedded to any particular line of thought philosophically. I have an open mind. I've got the time now that I'm retired to be involved and work for you. And I'll do a great job for you, and I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Crank.
Thank you very much. I just love living in this city. I chose this city because it's not Seattle, that it's not a large city, that it's one that really values tradition, that is inclusive, is one that likes that small town feel but also wants to feel modern. And that's not something I would want to change as a candidate or as a resident here in Edmonds. I'm a community person, and I like to connect with members of the community. Being on the Sister Cities Commission has been a great way of doing that. I have my candidacy in to be on the Senior Citizens Board because I have a passion for serving seniors and other safety net services within the area. And I'm just looking forward to being a long-term part of this community. I am supported by the Democratic Party in all 3 legislative districts in the area. I am supported by Senator Chase. I'm supported by 2 sitting council members, the council president, as well as the person whose seat we're trying to take, Joan Bloom. And I just really appreciate your support, and I appreciate that you're here tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Now I'd like to introduce up Laura Petzo and Neil Tibbet, and these are candidates for position number 7. Greetings. All right. You ready? First question goes to Ms. Petzo. What specific steps, new policies would you propose to fill empty storefronts and to attract new revenue-producing businesses in the city?
Thank you. Specific steps to attract new businesses and fill empty storefronts include improved public spaces, such as we did with the Hazel Miller Plaza. If you recall, that was behind a fence, and it would look like a construction site for several years. And when council had the opportunity to move ahead, even though the funding suddenly became subject to question, I was there to say, yes, go ahead, let's develop this thing, and if we don't get the grant, fine, we'll still have a lovely public amenity. And it has worked. That has drawn businesses to the area, and it has produced vibrant economic opportunity there. So I would say that one thing we could definitely do is create improved public spaces, and that will generate business for us.
All right, thank you. Mr. Tibbet, same question. What specific steps, new policies would you propose to fill empty storefronts and to attract new revenue-producing businesses to the city?
First of all, I'd like to say that I think that we've done a great job of bringing some new businesses into the city. It's become more attractive with the painting, with the murals. I give very high marks to the mayor of our city for leading the staff in a way that invites business and new economic activity in the city. I think we have a tremendous number of resources in the city, especially in our people. So people who live here, people who've retired here, they know people, they know businesses that would want to relocate in a place like Edmonds. I think we ought to strengthen the relationships that we have already here in the city to bring in additional businesses, to bring in economic activity, and increase the number of partnerships that exist within the region again, to substantiate what we already have here and bring in the kind of businesses that people enjoy going to, the kind of recreation that we participate in, and the kind of economic activity that would benefit all of us.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Tibbet, if elected, identify 2 or 3 proposals that you would make, advocate for in the next 4 years.
This is not a new thing, but I would really advocate for implementing the strategic action plan that over 2,500 citizens have participated in here in the city. I myself participated in it both as a planning board member and also I brought friends from the neighborhood to come and participate in the open sessions. It was a process that helped us prioritize activities and projects that we want to work on as a city. One of those that's very high on the list is the redevelopment of the Senior Center right here. And I'm very supportive of it. I've been a part of the deliberations about what would be happening here through the planning board process. And I look forward to getting to know not only more of the seniors, but also more of the staff who are working here so that we can move that project forward. Another thing that I think is absolutely important is figuring out a way for us to increase safe passage over or under around the railroad tracks. In the event of an emergency, we need to have a way to create access with the waterfront. So I have been proactive in reaching out to the port and the executive director here to find out what plans they have for creating a safety plan. And in fact, they do have plans in place. They are being proactive. And it was very helpful for me to hear what they're doing along those lines.
Thank you very much. Great. Ms. Petzo, same question. If re-elected, identify 2 or 3 proposals that you would make / advocate for in the next 4 years.
Thank you. Well, I would have to agree that the emergency access and redeveloping the senior center and adding back, for example, the police officers to our police department that the mayor has recommended are all very good policies. They're not necessarily new policies, though. In terms of new initiatives for the city, I am very excited about the long-range financial planning effort that we're about to undertake. It's not truly long-range in the sense that we're going to be looking at maybe 3 to 5 years, not 10 to 20 years. But I think that that's an important effort for the city to undertake, and it's an important thing for the city to start doing. And the second item that I think we should do, again, maybe not quite so new, but we need to get a handle on Highway 99. Right now, it's been pretty much rezoned to anything goes. It could be commercial, it could be housing, it could be a mix of commercial and housing. and it's the same, the entire length of Highway 99. I would like to see the city take a look at Highway 99 section by section, area by area. Maybe we want to do something different near the transit, the Swift stations, from what we want to do in places that are not so close to the Swift stations. Maybe there's areas we want to preserve for commercial activity and areas where we want to have a mix of uses. So those would be my two things that I'd be looking to work on in the near future, is long-range financial planning and Highway 99.
Thank you very much. Ms. Petzo, considering the incentive zoning options now available at Westgate, would you vote for height limits that exceed the current 25, 30-foot limit in downtown Edmonds in the surrounding bowl? If you would, what incentives would you propose the city receive in return for those added heights?
I would not be supporting height increases above the current height levels downtown and along the waterfront because there's too much cost to the citizens in that. It's going to block views, it's going to change the atmosphere of our town. It's the defining area of Edmonds. It's our precious downtown, our precious waterfront, and I wouldn't want to change that. Assuming that I wound up on the minority in that, though, and had to select which incentive I would advocate for, I would advocate for improved public spaces as the trade-off for extra height. As I said earlier, I think the Hazel Miller Plaza has demonstrated to us that improved public spaces do and can and do provide extra value to the citizens. And so if we do have to give up, for some reason, if we do have to give up our low-rise downtown and waterfront areas, I would think that we should be seeking improved public spaces in exchange.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tibbet, same question. Considering the incentive zoning options now available at Westgate, would you vote for height limits that exceed the current 25, 30-foot in the downtown Edmonds area in the surrounding bowl? If you would, what incentives would you propose that the city receive in return for that added height?
Well, I absolutely support the existing height limits here in the city of Edmonds. I have doorbell all around the city, and it's so interesting when you talk with people about what they're passionate about. One of the things that they're absolutely passionate about is maintaining the quaint feel that we have downtown, and also the opportunity to meet friends and neighbors all around the city. So in terms of additional incentive zoning that would allow to go, let's say, from 25 to 30 feet, which is the current existing limit. Public space is an easy one to go after. It's not particularly new. The Hazel Miller Plaza, which was a great idea, was also purchased by the city for those purposes. It wasn't an incentive zoning issue in particular. So one of the things that I would like to see in terms of incentive zoning would have to do with architectural design, landscaping, appearance of buildings. I would like the downtown core to be an attractive place all across the downtown area where people have meeting places, people can enjoy being with friends, they enjoy the recreation that happens here. And those are the kinds of incentives that I think do bring people into downtown and support economic development.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Tibbet, you may now ask your opponent a question. 30-second question, 90-second response, 30-second rebuttal.
I have it all written out for you, Laura.
I saw that. I saw the study session.
Oh, the study session. This one actually was written out long before. We know that you are a good debater, Laura, and you make plausible claims about what you've accomplished. But we're not clear about the facts you use to back up your claims. For example, you claim to have saved the city $2 million by suggesting that we could refinance our bonds. Most people know that refinancing debt is not a new idea. In fact, it's business as usual for a city. So we wonder about your facts. Could you explain specifically what you did to save Edmonds $2 million and what actions you personally took to make that happen?
Thank you, yes. When I applied for the council vacancy back in 2010, as I recall it, I haven't checked the minutes or the tape or whatever, but as I recall it, I claimed that I could find the city some money, and Councilmember Plunkett replied, really? And I suppose we have to appoint you in order to find that out. And I said, no, absolutely not. I'll give it to you as a freebie. And I suggested that the city refinance bonds. I knew from my service with the city between 2000 and 2003 that we had some really high interest rate bonds, and I knew that we could save some money. Now, when council first approved doing that, there was more work yet to be done because for some reason it didn't get done immediately. And maybe it was the turnover in the finance director's office, but I can remember working for a couple years to make this thing happen, to make this thing go. And I will say that it is absolutely true. Nobody does anything on council by themselves. It takes a majority vote, and typically it requires assistance from staff to implement it. And I fully admit that, but I also admit to having come up with the idea, gotten council approval for it, and pushed staff for it. Thanks.
Rebuttal.
Well, it's fine to push staff forward, it's fine to propose the idea, but to say that you are the one who actually was the one who saved the city $2 million seems to be an exaggeration. And part of why that concerns me is because you're working with other people on the city council who are also collaborating with you and wish to participate in the credit that would be due them in terms of getting a good thing done for the city.
Thank you very much. Ms. Petzo, your turn.
Thank you. When my opponent interviewed for council, if I recall correctly, you indicated support for an increased car tab fee. If elected to council, would you vote to increase the car licensing fee?
Yes, well, that didn't come up during the council interviews. However, it was something from when I was on the transportation committee that I did work on with some other citizens. And part of the justification for that was that we have deteriorating streets around the city, and the car tab was one way to have dedicated funds for the purpose of street maintenance. As most of us know, whether it's our own home, whether it's our car, whether it's the streets in our city, if we have deferred maintenance that goes on long enough, we actually end up paying much more, if not very, very much more, to either fix the streets or to do something to improve it. So at some point, we have to come up with a solution for maintaining streets. And I'm not talking about providing for all of the maintenance fees out of car tabs. What we were proposing was just only half of that would provide for the annual amount that was estimated that we need as a city to do maintenance. It would be a dedicated fund for those purposes to save us money as citizens over the long term.
Any rebuttal?
Yes, thank you. Years ago, the council went to the citizens to ask them to pay an increased car tab fee, and the citizens voted no. 70% voted no, we don't want an increased car tab fee. For that reason, if I am reelected, I will not be proposing that we increase the car tab fee. The legislature has told us we can go from $20 a car to $40 a car if we wish. And I will not advocate for that, and I will vote against that if the council even considers doing that. We could have done it in August, but we did not.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we'll have closing statements. And we will begin with Ms. Petzold.
Thank you. I was very surprised tonight to find my opponent claiming that he would not be interested in raising building heights and would be supporting our building height limits, because the Harbor Square plan would have called for 55-foot buildings on the port property. And my opponent supported that at the planning board level, and he supported that at a candidates forum last week. So I'm quite curious as to how that support is going to work out. I will not be voting to increase the building height limits in the downtown or the waterfront area.
Mr. Tippett, your closing statement.
We live in a great city, and I know that we can do a lot better. As I've doorbelled around the city, one of the things that I have heard that people ask they ask two questions. They say, do you get along with other people, and will you lead for the purpose of the benefit for the whole city? People are concerned about the squabbling that we hear on our city council, and they understand that most and possibly the most important work is being neglected. They expect the council to provide leadership, and I promise to serve as the kind of leader who gets things done. Concerning building heights, I absolutely support the existing building heights. There's no way that I would circumvent any kind of public process. That's completely against my nature. And for my opponent here to suggest that I would do otherwise is completely missing the point of the question that I was asked at the last forum, which was about economic development. I support economic development in our city. It's a way to reduce revenues. It's a way to make it an attractive place.
Thank you very much.
I'd appreciate your vote. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Next up, Councilmember Mr. Maceros. I'm just going to do that after. Oh, yeah. Mayor, come on up. Sorry, that's right. We have you two together. This will be nice.
I don't know if I'm running for city council or running for mayor, or maybe
Oh,
the
let me
mayor is
be
running for
clear.
city council. He has experience in city council.
All right. Well, so now's a good time to go ahead and let everybody know that Councilmember Buckness was invited to attend this evening, and unfortunately she was unable to attend because she's out of town. And for these two gentlemen, what we're going to do is we'll have questions for Mr. Maceros and then questions for Mr. Erling. And they're up here together. All right, so Mr. Maceros, 90 seconds. Oh no, it's actually 60 seconds, isn't it? Okay, so what are you most proud of in the time that you have served on City Council, and what legislation do you intend to offer in the next 4 years?
One of the things I've tried to do since my short term on the council, which has been 18 months, is to bring a spirit of collaboration, of working together. And so every council meeting, I try to say hello to each of my colleagues. And it seems like a small thing, isn't it? To just greet someone and say hello and ask how they are. And I don't always get around to all 6 of my colleagues at the meetings, but I really do make an effort to do that. And a lot of times we're going to disagree as a sense of colleagues. And so, you know, there are times where I vote against something and someone else votes for it. There are a lot of times where when I voted for something, I'm on the winning side, and there's a lot of times where I vote for something, I'm on the losing side. And what I've tried to do is exemplify the fact that I don't carry that with me. That, you know, well, we disagreed on that, and the majority of the council voted, and that's the will of the council, and we move forward. So I've tried to exemplify that in my work, and I can promise you that's something I'm going to continue to do in everything we do. Now, legislation. And so probably 5 corners. You know, one of my first big votes was the vote for the roundabout. The second thing that I think was important was voting on some of the things in Highway 99 in preparation for that. And the third thing is I really supported Westgate. I think that's just a great thing to have for our city and to move that forward.
Okay. Downtown parking is an ongoing problem for both residents and business access. What solution would you propose to address those parking issues?
Well, it's a problem, and I suppose I could say we're going to build a 5-story parking garage, but that won't get us very far in a lot of things. So I think what we have to do is encourage walkability, where people can have the ability to walk around our community and to see that. I happen to live at Point Edwards, and Margaret and I, my wife, we walk downtown a lot and use those Saturday morning markets as a wonderful way to visit with each other and also to shop in downtown, so improving walkability. And then finding opportunities, and this is going to be hard because the bowl is so built up, but finding opportunities for parking around the outskirts of the downtown core, because it would be very difficult to find parking in the downtown core. And so we need to include walkability and then finding some exterior places around the outskirts of town to put that parking in. And that's not an easy thing to do.
No. Thank you. All right. So considering the incentive zoning options now available at Westgate, would you vote for height limits that exceed the current 25, 30-foot height limits in downtown Edmonds in the surrounding bowl? If you would, what incentives would you propose that the city receive in return for that added height?
I think Westgate is a different story than downtown. And so, you know, and Highway 99 is a different story than Westgate, and Firdale Village is a different story as well. So there seemed to be, in our downtown Edmonds core, the sense of this is what we want it to be. And by far, the majority of the population wants that. And so then as a city council member, you have to be sensitive to that and learn to that. I have a difficult time saying never, 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 because life changes. And our downtown core has changed over the years in terms of what that is. But I can't foresee over the next 4 years of service to this city that I would be supporting anything that would increase the height limits. One of the key issues we have downtown is the lack of an additional hotel. And it would be so nice to have an additional hotel. And everyone we've talked to about building a hotel saying, well, they can't do it at 30-foot height limits. And so I want to say, yes, we want a hotel, but I only want it at 30-foot height limits. And so that's going to be a little bit of an issue for us as we try to deal with that. So I don't think there is any incentives I would offer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, so your closing statement.
Well, it's been an adventure to be a member of this city council. And it's an adventure that's been fun and energizing. I've really enjoyed the interaction and the comments that I get from people. For the first time in my life walking down streets in downtown Edmonds, people actually stop me and offer their opinion about things. And so that's an interesting thing to have happen to you as well. And it's energizing because we do live in a wonderful city. I mean, this is just a great gem. I was visiting with some people over the weekend from outside of Edmonds and mentioned that I was running for re-election, and they said, boy, Edmonds is just a wonderful town. Well, we all know that. And I promise that the energy that we have now for this wonderful town will be something that I'll continue to do during the next 4 years. I don't think we have a lot of problems in our town, but I do think we have a lot of opportunities. And so let's focus on those opportunities and see if we can succeed in improving what we already have that's very good.
Okay, thank you very much. Mayor Erling. Hello. So, a few questions for you, 90 seconds apiece. What do you see as the greatest needs of the city for the next 5 to 10 years? And what would you propose to be done to meet those needs?
The last word was?
What would you propose to be done to meet those needs?
Well, if you've paid any attention to some of my columns that I write every couple of weeks, I spend a lot of time talking about the economy. I spend a lot of time talking about the long-term needs financially for the city. And that, frankly, was one of the main issues that I took up when I became mayor. I'm concerned about the financial stability of the community. We don't have the proverbial shopping malls, which I'm happy about. We don't have a lot of big stores, big box stores, which I'm happy about. But you know what, folks? We've got to figure out a way, longer term, to generate revenue. We've actually done a pretty good job of that in the last few years. We've worked hard on economic development. We have had success in that area. If you followed some of the columns that we've been working on, is generating more revenue. Our sales tax is up. The economy has turned, certainly a big help. But I see that as the big long-term worry. All the finance directors we've had over the last few years, you get out to about years 2, 3, 4 away from where we're at right now, and red ink starts to show up. So that would be my answer.
All right, thank you very much. As the budget originator, what revenue and expense proposals will you make to assure that the city maintain adequate general fund reserves?
Well, there are several ways that we can approach it. We can always ask the folks here in the community for increased taxes. I've studiously managed to avoid any kind of a tax proposal put before the folks. Again, I'm interested in how we can generate revenue over long term. Some of the improvements we've done on economic development, if you stop and think, and I've said this in many different settings, but I'll say it again, 5 or 6 years ago, after 6 o'clock, you came to downtown Edmonds, you could park anywhere you want to. Guess what? We have a parking problem now, and frankly, in a sort of odd way, I'm proud of that, because that means people are here, people are active in the community. This city just kind of churns after 6 o'clock now. I find it to be a really positive experience, because I know that people are in those restaurants having dinner and spending money and raising revenue. So I don't have any inclination in the next year or two to even think about proposing a tax, because the economy looks to me, and our projections are that our revenues will generate probably another 5% next year.
Okay, thank you very much. Final question. From 2010 to 2014, residential burglaries increased from 122 to 219 per year. That's almost 80%. What would you propose that the city do to address this problem?
Boy, that almost sounds like a softball question to me. If you followed the latest budget proposal I'm putting before the council, we need to get back to our street crimes unit. It was cut in 2012, simply with the budget pressures we were having at the time. There had to be some very difficult cuts made, and well, the first budget that I did, we had to cut 4% across the board, each department. We lost about 12 employees during that time. So there were very hard cuts, and one of the cuts that was recommended actually by the police department is we would have to cut the street crimes unit. Having set that aside now, and with the improved revenue picture, my proposal the other night proposed reinstating the street crimes unit. And of course they focus on things like burglary, things like prostitution, things like drug problems. So that would be the immediate proposal, and if we look at in the long term, if that doesn't appear to be enough to get us back in the 100 level, I remember what you were your number was, but we need to be proactive on this.
Thank you very much. Closing statement, please.
Well, I've enjoyed very much being the mayor of the city. We work with a fabulous community. We work with a fabulous staff, which, by the way, is understaffed compared to other Puget Sound area cities. And it's just been such a delight to work with the staff, to know that I represent a community that cares about itself. In my election 4 years ago, we had, I think, and I could be wrong about this, about a 64% voter turnout in a municipal election. If you go canvass what was going on in Everett, and if you canvass what was going on in Linwood at the same time, they were in the high 20s or low 30s as far as voter turnout. That indicates to me that this community cares about itself, and I'm proud of that, because I know all too well that we hear from the community if there's something they don't like. And I hear about it daily, as a matter of fact. But I look forward to serving another 4 years. If any of you ever need to get a hold of me, I'm certainly open, and please do contact me.
Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for coming and attending, and all the candidates for your thoughtful comments here.